ever find yourself wondering what really makes someone tick? I mean, we all put on a face, right? Present a certain version of ourselves.
Hmm.
But what are the hidden engines driving our behavior? The motivations we might not even be fully aware of.
That's exactly the fascinating territory we're venturing into today.
Yeah.
It really is about looking beyond those surface presentations
Right.
to understand the fundamental patterns, the personality structures that shape our inner and outer worlds.
And our guide on this journey is the Enneagram. It's such a powerful system, isn't it, for illuminating these 9 distinct personality types.
Absolutely.
Today, we're focusing our lens sharply on one specific, and often, well, pretty nuanced type,
Hmm.
the sexual 3.
A particularly intriguing subtype, often characterized by complexities that aren't immediately obvious.
Exactly. And to really bring this archetype to life, we're examining a character so perfectly aligned with the sexual 3. I mean, even the renowned Enneagram scholar Claudia Naranja specifically cited her.
I guess.
Alice Harford from Stanley Kubrick's, well, let's face it, enigmatic film, Eyes Wide Shut.
A movie that, while it's exploring themes of marriage and desire on the surface, it also offers this profound, almost subconscious look at how different personality structures play out under pressure.
Absolutely. Now, you, our insightful listener, you provided some fantastic material to help us delve into this.
Yeah, great stuff.
So our mission today is to distill the essence of the sexual 3, as brilliantly portrayed by Alice Harford, and really extract the insights that will resonate most with you.
Okay, let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this. What are the absolute core drivers, the fundamentals of a sexual 3 personality?
Well, at its core, the sexual 3, like all threes, is navigating questions of identity. There's often this strong identification with a cultivated image.
Okay.
The central passion driving them is a kind of deceit. Now, not necessarily malicious deceit, but more a self-deception, believing their own constructed image.
Right, fooling themselves almost.
Exactly. And that then extends to how they present themselves. But the sexual 3 channels this through a very specific lens: desire.
Desire. Okay, how does that differentiate them from, say, other 3s?
Well, the primary fuel isn't just a need for achievement, or general admiration. It's deeper. It's this deep, often unconscious hunger to be intensely desired, particularly in intimate relationships. So this manifests as a heightened focus on physical attractiveness, seeing it as the key to validation.
More than career success, maybe.
Sometimes, yes,
Wow.
even more so than conventional markers of success for some. They have this powerful urge to please others, specifically to feel desired and validated in those close personal spheres.
Right.
And underneath this drive often lies a significant disconnection from their own authentic emotions and desires. It gets masked by this profound fear of rejection in intimate connections.
So it's not just social rejection.
No. For the sexual 3, it strikes right at the core of their constructed identity. It threatens the very foundation of their self-worth.
So it's less about climbing the corporate ladder and maybe more about being seen as utterly irresistible.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
And this intense need, you mentioned it might have roots in earlier experiences.
Yes, the sources we looked at point to a potential link. A perceived lack of deep, genuine maternal attention in childhood.
Interesting.
And this can lead to what's described as a pathological need to see oneself in the other's gaze as an adult. Their whole sense of self becomes deeply intertwined with how others, especially potential partners, perceive them.
Wow.
Their internal barometer of worth is basically set by the intensity of other people's desire for them.
Which brings us right to Alice in Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, that opening scene of her in front of the mirror is so striking, isn't it? It's almost iconic for understanding her character.
Oh, absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Alice undressing before the mirror. It isn't just a moment of sensuality for its own sake. It's a really powerful visual representation of self-objectification. She is acutely aware of her body as something to be looked at, evaluated, and ultimately desired. The mirror becomes this recurring motif in the film, constantly emphasizing this awareness of her external presentation and its potential to elicit that desired gaze.
And then her confession about the naval officer,
Yeah.
that scene really stayed with me. It's quite something.
It's incredibly revealing, isn't it? Notice where her focus lies. She says, "The way he looked at me, and I can hardly breathe."
Yeah.
Excitement isn't really about her own feelings for this other person, but about the sheer intensity of his desire directed at her.
Right.
That desire, in that moment, it validates her existence, her worth in her own eyes. It's all about the reflection of herself she sees in his captivated gaze.
Okay, now you also mentioned the sweet and maternal role. That might seem on the surface to contradict this image of someone so focused on being desired in a more overtly sexual way.
Not necessarily. It's complex. For the sexual three, embodying the role of mother or wife can be deeply connected to their sense of identity. It can provide a certain kind of relational security.
Ah, okay.
So even if there's underlying dissatisfaction or maybe a lack of genuine emotional connection, stepping outside this defined role can feel incredibly threatening. It's almost like another performance,
Ah.
aimed at achieving that desire, but in a different way, by being the indispensable nurturing partner.
We definitely see that with Alice, don't we? I mean, even with all the unspoken tension with Bill, she's still very much in that role, caring for Helena, managing the household.
Exactly. The sexual three, even one primarily driven by the need to be desired, often finds a sense of safety and, well, usefulness in creating a nurturing environment.
Hmm.
They derive a sense of validation from pleasing and providing, and this maternal role fits into that pattern. It offers a form of stability in their lives, even when their inner world is anything but stable.
Now, this idea of accommodating with subterranean asking, that's a fascinating phrase. It's like they're outwardly agreeable, but inwardly there's a whole other story boiling up. Unmet needs.
Precisely. The sexual three often presents as someone who goes along with things, seemingly easygoing, not making demands.
Right. The cool girl, perhaps?
Could be, but beneath that agreeable surface, there can be this reservoir of unexpressed needs and a potential for significant repressed anger if they consistently feel unseen or unreciprocated in the specific ways they crave.
Alice definitely plays that part, doesn't she? The compliant wife hosting the parties, fulfilling the expected social behaviors, but then that marijuana-fueled confession just erupts?
It had intense outbursts. It's a prime example of what's described as a hysterical outbreak of rage. It's the accumulated weight of all those unexpressed longings and frustrations finally breaking through the carefully constructed facade.
Yeah.
Her confession, in a way, is her subterranean asking. It's a desperate, albeit indirect and maybe even unconscious attempt to get Bill to truly see her,
Beyond the image.
beyond the image of the perfect wife she's been projecting for so long.
It's like she's been so focused on being what she thinks Bill desires, on being the desired object, that she's maybe lost touch with her own authentic desires. And this outburst is her unconscious way of trying to reclaim that lost part of herself.
Exactly right. They invest so much energy in anticipating and fulfilling the perceived desires of others, all to gain that crucial external validation,
Mm.
that they can completely lose sight of what they truly want and need. It gets buried.
Let's delve into this ambiguous sexuality. That look at me but don't touch me dynamic you mentioned is really intriguing, especially thinking about Alice. She definitely exudes this alluring quality.
It's a key characteristic, yes,
Mhm.
particularly often observed in women of this subtype, though not exclusively. There's genuine enjoyment in attracting attention, in feeling desired and admired,
Right.
but sometimes a distinct hesitation or even an underlying fear when it comes to actual deeper sexual engagement or vulnerability. Think about Alice's interactions with Sandor Savost at the Christmas party.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely engaging, almost flirtatious, isn't she? Drawing him in with her attention, but there's a clear boundary she maintains.
Precisely. She enjoys the validation of his desire, that feeling of being the object of his gaze, but it doesn't necessarily translate into a desire for a deeper emotional connection or physical intimacy on her part.
Mm.
For the sexual three, the feeling of being intensely seen and desired can be the primary reward. Sometimes it even eclipses the actual fulfillment of sexual intimacy. The attention is the prize, you see.
And the sources suggest this can sometimes manifest as, well, frigidity. Is that right?
Yes, that's mentioned.
Yeah.
Because if sexuality becomes primarily a tool for gaining attention and securing validation from others, well, there isn't much internal space left for their own genuine enjoyment
Okay.
or a healthy connection to their own eroticism. It risks becoming a performance for an audience rather than a genuine expression of their own desire and pleasure. They can be highly seductive while feeling internally quite disconnected from the erotic energy they project.
Wow. So beneath this carefully crafted, often alluring image, there's often what's described as an undervalued and depressive core. That sounds quite poignant.
It is, really. Despite the outward charm, the focus on external validation and the seeming confidence they project,
Mhm.
There's often this deep-seated feeling of being fundamentally unseen,
Mhm.
of not being truly appreciated or loved for who they are beneath the carefully constructed surface.
Mhm.
Alice's almost whispered line in the film, "If you men only knew."
Mhm.
That really encapsulates this profound feeling, doesn't it, of being fundamentally misunderstood and undervalued.
They compensate with the dazzling image, the captivating charm, but it's like they're constantly seeking this external validation, this narcissistic supply you
Yeah.
mentioned, to fill a void that maybe can only truly be filled internally.
Precisely. The admiration and desire of others act as a kind of emotional fuel, but it doesn't provide the genuine emotional nourishment and connection they truly need. This often leads to a persistent sense of internal loneliness, even when they're getting that external validation. It's a hunger that can never be truly satisfied by external sources alone.
And this underlying fear of being truly seen, maybe with all their imperfections, perhaps that contributes to the cold, controlled, and disconnected behavior that's also mentioned.
Absolutely. The sexual three often harbors a significant, often unconscious fear of losing control, of those carefully managed emotions spilling over and revealing what they perceive as their true, less desirable self.
Right.
This often manifests as a certain rigidity, both mentally, perhaps in their thought patterns, and physically in their posture, their demeanor. We see it in Alice's often perfect posture, her carefully modulated tone,
Mhm.
the way she often seems to be observing the emotional landscape rather than fully
Mm.
immersed in it.
And when those carefully constructed controls do break down, like we see during her intense confession or in that surreal dream sequence, the emotional intensity is almost shocking because of the contrast.
Those moments are described as hysterical outbursts, precisely because so much conscious and unconscious energy is constantly being put into keeping those dangerous or unacceptable emotions suppressed.
Yep.
Dissociation and denial can become habitual coping mechanisms to prevent those feelings from erupting and potentially shattering their carefully maintained image.
The sources also highlight idealization and disillusionment in relationships. That makes a lot of sense, actually, given this deep need for external validation and a perfect image.
It does fit, doesn't it? The sexual three often has this tendency to place their romantic partners on a pedestal,
Mm.
to idealize them, perhaps as a reflection of their own, striving for a kind of unattainable perfection.
So it's highly likely Alice held an idealized vision of Bill early in their marriage.
Very likely, yes. However, when the inevitable reality of their partner's flaws and imperfections surfaces, well, that can trigger a significant crisis, a painful shattering of that carefully constructed ideal.
And Alice's confession to Bill, revealing her own flaw, that intense fantasy with the naval officer, could that be interpreted as a kind of reciprocal shattering Bill's idealization of her?
Exactly. That's a really insightful way to look at it. It's almost as if she's unconsciously saying, if I can't be the perfect desired object you might imagine, then you don't get to hold on to an idealized version of me either.
Wow.
It's a dramatic, almost desperate reaction to the crumbling of the idealized image of the relationship they both may have been clinging to.
This constant internal pressure and emotional management must be incredibly anxiety-provoking, just exhausting.
It really is. There's often a constant underlying hum of anxiety related to the fear of those suppressed emotions finally overflowing.
Hmm.
And for the sexual three, this intense emotional distress can frequently manifest in tangible physical symptoms. What we understand as psychosomatic responses, the mind and body are so deeply connected.
Like Alice's very strong reaction to the marijuana, or her subsequent illness and withdrawal after Bill's prolonged and mysterious absence. Could those be examples?
Those could very well be powerful expressions of that underlying emotional turmoil finding a physical outlet, yes. The disconnection from their own authentic feelings, the persistent denial of their emotional reality. Sometimes it leads to these physical symptoms. It's the body's way of signaling a deep internal distress that the conscious mind might be trying hard to ignore.
Finally, the concept of perfectionistic image making. We've touched on the desire to be desired, which clearly has a strong visual component, but it seems to extend beyond just physical attractiveness, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The perfectionism of the sexual three is often heavily invested in the physical realm of their appearance, how they present themselves outwardly, because that's a primary tool they've learned to use
Right, for attracting admiration.
for attracting admiration, desire, and ultimately validation. Alice's meticulously maintained appearance throughout the film is such a clear visual example of this,
Yeah.
but it definitely goes deeper. They often strive to project an ideal internal image as well, the perfect mother, the perfect friend, the perfect partner. It's about carefully crafting this seemingly flawless persona, both inside and out, to elicit the desired response.
So when we look at Eyes Wide Shut through this Enneagram lens, it's really more than just a psychological thriller. It's almost a case study, isn't it, of someone at a really critical turning point in their personality development.
Precisely. The film captures Alice at a profoundly vulnerable moment, a point of significant crisis for her sexual 3 personality structure.
Right.
When that carefully constructed ego, built on the need for external validation and this perfect image, begins to crumble under the weight of reality and unmet needs. They're often confronted with terrifying inner void. It can lead to deep feelings of despair, a questioning of their entire identity.
And Alice's dawning realization, of the hollowness, perhaps, of her constructed identity, her raw confession, her unsettling dream, these all seem to be powerful indicators of that painful confrontation, facing the underlying illusion she's been living.
Exactly. And the fact that she's married to a social 3 Bill, who, as we understand from the Enneagram, might prioritize external achievement and social standing in different ways, that could potentially exacerbate this internal conflict. Her feeling of being unseen and unvalued in her more intimate emotional needs.
Yeah, adds another layer.
It does. Ultimately, the film offers this potent, albeit, disturbing, exploration of the consequences of seeking genuine connection and validation through inauthentic image-based means and the inevitable personal crisis that can ensue.
So to kind of bring it all together then, the sexual 3, as powerfully embodied by Alice Harford, is fundamentally driven by this intense need to be desired, which fuels a strong preoccupation with image maintenance, a complex relationship with sexuality often used as a tool for validation, and frequently a significant disconnect from their own genuine emotions and desires, all potentially masked in a deep well of inner turmoil and a profound fear of being truly seen.
Precisely. That relentless quest for external validation, while it often appears successful on the surface, ultimately leaves this significant void. And that can lead to a profound personal reckoning.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? I mean, how might understanding these intricate Enneagram dynamics, particularly this deep dive into the complexities of the sexual 3, how might that help you, listening now, recognize similar patterns? Not just in compelling fictional characters like Alice, but perhaps even in yourselves or in the dynamics of the relationships that surround you.
It certainly raises important questions for all of us, I think, about the authenticity of the personas we present to the world and the often unconscious needs that truly drive our behaviors and shape our expectations within our closest connections.
Absolutely food for thought. We really encourage you to take some time to reflect on these concepts, to consider how these dynamics might be playing out in the real world around you, and perhaps even be inspired to explore the Enneagram system further.
There's always deeper understanding to be gained, isn't there?
Yeah.
About ourselves and the intricate ways we navigate our relationships with others.
And that ultimately is the goal of a deep dive like this, to provide you with a more direct path to a richer, more nuanced understanding.
Well said.
Thanks for exploring this with us today.